Territorial. When you woke up this morning, did you purposely say, I'm going to confine myself to a box? Or do you just avoid putting any conscious thought into today? When you're busy going at it, literally or figuratively, do you ever find yourself pausing for a moment to realize what's going on? Or are you just reacting? When you hear the saying, may I have your attention please, do you continue as you were, or do you consider the information you're about to receive might actually be valuable? When I was growing up, my mother used to ask me to do things, and sometimes her reasoning was, because I said so. Looking back, I wish perhaps I took the time to pause, think, and consider the ramifications of my choices. Good Monday to you. Today is Monday, October 24th, 2016. This is episode number 31 of Pause, Think, Consider. Thanks for tuning in today. The topic of today's podcast is 25 pounds of excuses. I have a special guest with me today, none other than my good friend, personal trainer. I'll let him do his own introduction, but Mr. Mike Efird. And today, we are talking about and discussing, as I alluded to, 25 pounds of excuses. The idea, from his perspective, because he is a personal trainer, so he deals with, on a day-in, day-out basis of excuses. As I've equated to, a personal trainer is part physiologist, determining how to make you stronger, give you more endurance, make you look good in your birthday suit. That's part of his job. Part of his job is to ensure that you're healthy, both mentally and physically. It's oftentimes the first part of trying to make sure that you're in good shape comes with the second part. But the main chunk of what I envision as a personal trainer, what they physically do, is they are all about motivation. If people were self-motivated, they wouldn't need somebody like Mike. They wouldn't need personal trainers. And I don't know off the top of my head, hopefully Mike knows, how big the actual industry is of personal trainers, whether it's a billion, gajillion dollar industry. But individuals in that space have forever been able to make a living. Myself personally, I've never used Mike's services. I've never used a personal trainer. The only time I ever had a coach or a trainer was when I was playing music. I had a drum instructor, and I would take lessons from them. But as far as physical fitness, my personal viewpoint is if I'm not self-motivated enough to get my ass off the couch and to get it into the gym, what the hell is anybody else going to tell me? How am I possibly going to accomplish my goals because I'm only with that individual for a certain period of time? What do I do when I'm not with that trainer? What do I do when I'm not at that fitness class? I understand people need accountability measures. And I envision that's a lot of what Mike does and what Mike encounters as a personal trainer. However, if you don't have the self-motivation, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle to accomplish your goals. So, without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Mike. He'll give you a little bit more background information in terms of who he is, what he does, and what he does, and how on a daily basis he encounters what we've coined 25 pounds of excuses.
Thanks, Jesse, and thanks for letting me be here and joining with this. It's quite an honor for you to let me talk about what I do. I have been a personal trainer for the last 7 years. Just a little quick background of why I do what I do is, well, first, I love helping people, whether it be what we do in the refereeing world and help young referees come up, but people struggle on a daily basis with what they look like naked. They do not like what they see in the mirror, and they don't know how to make themselves look the way they want to look, whether it be getting bikini ready for the summer or just ready about to take a trip and visit their in-laws. But it goes a lot deeper than just what they look like and how they see themselves. They have emotional ties to certain things like food, and they have emotional ties to looking a certain way. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but back to why I'm doing it is I started out because I sought the help from a personal trainer. I wanted to make a change in my life. I wasn't overweight. I've always been real slim, what they consider ectomorphic body type, which just means tall and skinny, and makes it very hard for me to put on lean mass, lean muscle. So I wanted to change the way I looked in certain uniforms. So I went and saw my good friend Larry Norfleet in Tacoma, Washington. And he had me on a regime 6 days a week, pushing weights around. And we became super close in the sense that he would constantly ask me questions about my personal life and what's holding me back from achieving goals and things like that. And I'm like, I'm here to lift weights, dude. Just kind of help me with that. And what I didn't realize what he was doing was he was tapping into the thread work of what kind of made me who I was. So that the motivation didn't need to come from him. After we removed all the junk out of my life, I would be my own motivator. And consequently, it didn't take very long for some of those walls to be broken down. And his coaching method and the way that he pushed me, and I was like, Jesus, Larry, I said, what's it take to be a guy that does what you do? And he turned to me and he says, you've already got it. You already know what you were doing. You have already bridged that gap. And I'm like, well, what do you think if I become a personal trainer too? And he said, I would highly recommend it. And that's why I got into doing it. I got into the business thinking, I'm going to be on the sidelines at Oregon State, working with the top athletes, the football players, the basketball players, and getting them strong and ready for season. And I started my career at 24 Hour Fitness, and I came to realize very quickly that the 18-year-old student athlete is not going to be the guy that can afford personal training. It's just way too expensive. They don't have it in their pocketbook. But what I realized was that the people that did have the money, the 30 and 40-somethings that were prone to injury because they had led a sedentary life. And so they'd come in and they'd have a shoulder this or a hip that and knee this. And I got into weight loss and injury recovery, and my whole idea about what this whole personal training thing really changed. I was talking about Larry and breaking down those walls. The guy that you see prevalent on television today is an extreme weight loss makeover. His name is Chris Powell. He's actually from the Portland area. And one of my trainees, her son grew up with Chris Powell, so she had a connection with the guy. And I've never got to meet him. Not yet anyway. I'm still looking to make that happen. But if you watch his show, there is always a big portion of the episode where they've got the person just at their peak exhaustion level. They don't think they could finish the workout, and it's usually one of the first workouts that Chris does with them. These guys are way overweight, way obese, morbidly obese. And in their second workout, Chris breaks them down to the point where they are exhausted and crying, and it's not because they don't think they can finish that lap. That's just what their mind is telling them. But what comes out is, I became this way because of this. I'm this way because I had this relationship happen to me in my past life. I'm this way because I used to be bulimic, or I went the other direction. There's always something personal in nature. And once Chris is able to break that wall down, those people can conquer anything. And then you see what happens by the end of the show. After 3 or 6 months' time, they've lost hundreds of pounds, and they well on their way to becoming the person that they really should be. So that's me in a nutshell. That's why I do what I do. I love helping people. I love seeing the change in their lives. I love seeing the expression on their faces when something happens right for them and they break that wall down for themselves. And then they become their own motivational cause. In my 7 years, 4 of my clients have gone on to become personal trainers after breaking down their own walls and learning how to motivate other people. And that's, I think, a feather in my cap. I really am proud of that. But I've had people who we're about to pass along to you, one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, Carla Sasanya. She started with me. She was just over 300 pounds. And in a year's time, she had dropped down to 180. She is in her 50s, just got married a month ago. And she had certain walls in her life. The first day that I saw her, she said, I can't do what you're about to ask me to do. So I said, so why are you hiring me? And she said, it's the last resort. I've got to do it. I've never been able to. I've had other personal trainers. They haven't been able to get through to me. You're my last resort. And so I took that as a challenge. And I had her doing things that she never knew she was capable of doing. And her teachers, she's a principal at a middle school, and her teachers around her dubbed her the incredible shrinking woman over the course of that year. And she came up to me on our anniversary of being together for 1 year and showed me a before picture. And I didn't recognize her in the before picture. Didn't realize that was a woman I had seen a year ago. She had done so much work and so much effort, became super strong, and now she's got goals of joining the senior fitness competitions and things of that nature.
So, Mike, one of the things that I think can go one way or the other, you've got these individuals that they're stubborn to the point that they won't actually commit. They can't actually move forward. You gave several different examples in your intro about people and their lives that you've impacted, but they had no idea and had to get over that hurdle of, I can't do this. And I think there's other individuals, and I probably fall more on that side of the coin, where they are so stubborn, it is almost a detriment to themselves. Maybe overactivity, pushing beyond limits. And I think to a certain degree, that's a good thing. We have to mentally overcome those challenges. But I think there's two sides of that coin. So can you talk a little bit about individuals and how stubborn they are, and how being stubborn can affect your inability, your inactivity, but it can also affect and be a detriment to you in terms of overactivity, for trying to prove something and not taking those necessary precautions and those measures to ensure that you're doing it on a safe basis.
Yeah, that's actually a really good topic. I had a lady that came to me when I was first starting out 24-hour fitness, and came to me, she's trying to get married. She wanted to lose those last 6 stubborn pounds. And the first thing that I told her is, let's not talk about the weight. Let's talk about what you look like naked. Because if I do my job, those 6 pounds doesn't matter as long as you like what you look like in the mirror, right? And she agreed to that. Yeah, absolutely. I said, so even though that we use weight as a guide to what we're doing, it's not going to be our determination of success. Because as we all know, muscle weighs more than fat. So fat, while it looks large and ugly, a pound of fat looks twice the size of a pound of muscle. A long, lean, beautiful muscle. So I conveyed that to her. She agreed. And then I started to probe into her background. I said, Cindy, so what do you do? She goes, well, I'm a nurse and kind of in charge of the other nurses. I'm like, okay, so what do you do other than that? You got a busy life, like as far as your professional lifestyle, your super busy lifestyle. What do you do other than that? She goes, well, like this morning, I was at CrossFit this morning. I'm like, okay. And then I'm going to see you today, and then I'm going to go on a 10-mile bike ride this afternoon. I'm like, whoa. Yeah, she goes, I'm real determined. I got to lose this weight. I'm like, I thought we agreed that we're not going to talk about the weight in that regard. So she's like, great. I'll lose these inches. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I think that you're doing it wrong. And here's why. You're putting your body under so much stress that its only saving mechanism is to hold on to fat. That is our primal bodies speaking back. Anytime it goes into a defense mechanism, like when we starve ourselves, consume too much, we do anything that off balances our natural rhythm, we're going to just store fat. And so it took me weeks and weeks to convince her that she needed to settle down with the exercise and hold off. She hired me for 3 hours a week, plus she was doing CrossFit 6 days a week, plus she was going on these bike rides. And so every day she was killing herself, and she couldn't lose it. So her nutrition was perfect. And then she said, well, I don't know why it's not working. I'm doing everything I can. I'm like, no, you're not. You're not following my advice, which is to back off. I want you to stop one thing or the other. I don't care if it's me or if it's 20-mile bike rides or if it's CrossFit. I need you to pull back just a little bit. She goes, well, I am going to Hawaii for a bridal shower, a week-long event with my bride. And I'm like, oh, perfect. You'll be able to take a break. She goes, well, I plan on a hike in the morning and a hike in the afternoon, and I'm going to CrossFit Honolulu every day that I'm there. I'm like, whoa, this is supposed to be a vacation. And I'm like, your bridesmaids are not going to be wanting to do hikes 3 times a day and going to CrossFit. She's like, oh, I'll make them do it. We all want to look good in our dresses. I'm like, whatever. They're going to be on the beach while you're taking yourself on a lonely hike 3 times a day. But go have fun. Cindy goes. She comes back a week later. And I said, so how'd all the hiking go? She goes, we only went once. You were right. Nobody else wanted to go. And I just decided just to hang out and have drinks on the beach with them. I'm like, perfect. Leave right now. And we had a training schedule right then. I said, leave right now. Go dress shopping. She's like, what? I said, go dress shopping. Go try on your dresses now. And she's like, all right. And so she leaves. I didn't charge her for the session, but she calls me up later that afternoon. She said, Mike, I lost 4 inches while I was on vacation. I'm like, well, no shit. I've been telling you for the last 4 months that you need to slow down. Your body's overloaded. It's overstressed. And that's the stubbornness I think you're referring to, Jesse, when you have people that take it the wrong way. They do too much. I tell guys all the time, hey, leave your pride at the door. That weight that you lifted in high school is not the weight you're lifting today. And not to mention, when you lifted that weight in high school, you were terrible at lifting it. I mean, your form was way off, your back was round, your core wasn't engaged. You were just lifting to impress the girls. You know how they say, the curls for the girls and chest for the best. And that's all out the window when you come into my gym. You come in, you learn how to do it right with light weight. We set your pride down. And then in a couple of weeks, we build that strength back up, and then we find out where your explosive nature is after that. We build a solid platform for you. And I see too often, because I do coach out of a CrossFit gym, which, as you know, is heralded as having injury-prone athletes. But we have athletes that come into CrossFit, and as you know, we do a lot of Olympic-style lifting, which clean and jerk and the snatch, explosive moves. And people want to get weight as fast as they can. They want to load up the bars and out-muscle the other guy. And they haven't built that platform that I'm talking about. And we as coaches in the CrossFit community have a realization of that. And we have to keep a close eye on those athletes that won't set their pride down. And I am continually telling them if they're not perfect in their form, then they're going to drop the weight. They're going to lower the weight. And I don't care what the score says at the end of the day, but I'm not going to have you walking out with some dismembered shoulder piece or broken bones or back injuries because you just won't listen to sound advice. So stubborn for the guys, I normally see that they're trying to do too much too fast. Stubborn for the ladies is a whole different scenario. They have those emotional ties, whether it comes to food or they make excuses for why they can't do what you ask them to do. The title of our podcast today, 25 pounds of excuses, that came out of a conversation that you and I had about my lab partner in biology. She's asking me about what I do, and she wants to lose 25 pounds. And I gave her a quick questionnaire about what do you do for food? How's your nutrition? That's always where I go to first. And she said, well, I'm eating really good, and I said, that's not what I asked. I said, what do you do for food? What does that mean to you? And she said, well, I start with a Herbalife shake in the morning. And mind you, nothing against Herbalife or its wonderful qualities that they have, but I'm not a smoothie guy. I think there's benefit to it at the right time in your nutrition cycle, but I'm not the guy that's going to recommend supplements as a weight loss decision. I think if we learn how to eat right first with whole natural foods, then the supplements can come in handy when maybe there's a lack of time, or maybe when there's a situation where you need to add protein and find a way to do it, then maybe take a protein supplement. But first we have to break the bad eating habits that we have. And the first eating habit that we have is we all eat too much sugar, period. So back to this girl, she talks about the shake that she drinks every morning for breakfast. And I said, well, that's the first change you need to make. I said, I don't care if you drink the shake. I just don't want it to be the first thing that you have. Your body's in this fasting mode, and it's going to take that shake and turn it immediately into glucose, which, of course, is going to help you maintain the weight that you currently have, the 25 pounds that you're trying to lose. It says, well, I only wake up 15 minutes before I got to leave for work. I'm like, great. Make the meal the night before. And then she said, well, I'm just not hungry first thing when I wake up. I'm like, that's because you're eating terribly all throughout the day, and you don't eat right before you go to bed. And we talk a little bit about what that means to her in a little bit, but she says, then I have to eat and put my makeup on while I'm driving to work. And I said, well, other than it being terribly unsafe to drive and put your makeup on at the same time, you ever think about eating right when you get out of bed, put your makeup on, or, hey, set the alarm for a half hour earlier? Well, because I go to bed at this time, I can never get to sleep. And I said, let's turn that conversation full circle. You're eating terribly, so you're up later at night. Your system was all jacked out of place. It's like you're on one continual jet lag. And I was talking to you about this, Jesse, and you coined this great phrase. It sounds like she's got 25 pounds of excuses, and it's perfect to what I see in a daily basis with people who are struggling with either weight loss or injury recovery or strength gains. They make excuse after excuse after excuse. And as a trainer, I have had to fire more clients for giving me those excuses. I fired them because if you're not going to follow my advice, I'm not going to take your money. It doesn't do anything for either one of us for that to happen. So that we have that stubbornness on both sides of the coin. Like you get the guys that push themselves way too hard, or sometimes even the ladies, or the ladies that just won't take your advice nutritionally because they have all these emotional ties and they've got a certain way of they have to do things. And then they see the scale as an emotional trigger, so they never step on the scale, which could be a different topic of conversation. But unlike most trainers, I tell people, hey, you want to lose the weight, you got to cut the emotional ties, you got to treat your body like it's a science experiment, you got to step on the scale every day. We got to see where you're at every day. And not that we're going to use weight as our deciding factor of what we look like naked, but we're going to use it as a tool along the road. And know that if we're doing certain things right, yeah, you're going to see a drop in weight one day, and then maybe a plateau, but then you'll see inches go away the second day. But we have that emotional tie to the scale and to the number that's on that scale. And the ones that have done it right, you look at bodybuilders, they step on the scale not because they want to get that perfect weight. They just want to see what their weight is doing in relationship to their body fat. So that's my experience in the stubbornness side.
So I think the next logical thing to go off of with this, and hearing your descriptions, Mike, about stubbornness and individuals that are able to push through or not push through, how I tend to relate it is individuals that are able to overcome these barriers. They're able to overcome. But what I find so much in different exercise programs, whether it's what you prescribe for your clients or, as you mentioned, the aforementioned CrossFit community, is adaptability. And I found personally through my own personal workouts and just in my philosophies with life is learning to be comfortable while we're uncomfortable. Taking that leap of faith, as we've talked about so many times, but adaptability. And really, in the workout, in the fitness industry, adaptability is oftentimes a bad thing. I look at bodybuilders. I go and I research, 5'8", 155 pounds. I don't know. I'm probably a 16% body fat, something like that. I did the bod pod test last year. I think it was wrong, but it said 16%. I would think it would be less too, especially being a paleotonic individual, but it's not. So, adaptability. Adaptability can be a good thing. My body is accepting all of the work that I've been doing. It is accepting the fact that I am on this new lifestyle. I'm not going to use the word diet. I actually dislike the word diet, but lifestyle. So I'm on this new lifestyle, and I am seeing results. I know when I cut out grain and I cut out dairy forever, I've been glutened and dairied before, and it is a bad experience for everyone within the vicinity. But once I cut that out, I don't know, a month, probably, you start to see the results. Then I went, and okay, I've started to see these results now. Now how can I do something different? And I'm always researching. I take the same philosophy that Tim Ferriss does about being a human guinea pig. Maybe not to the degree that he does. And there are some crazy whacked out individuals that I found on YouTube. I forget, I will link to them on the website. But there's an individual that essentially, it's not quite a ketogenic type of diet, but he incorporates fasting and just uses coffee. Like, he wakes up and has coffee, and then he doesn't eat until like 1 o'clock, and then has a Rice Krispie treat, and then some sort of a meal. And I mean, he's got abs for days and a chest that looks incredible. But I think the nature of what he's doing is he's forcing his body to always be adapting. I did something a little bit similar. I was playing around with my diet. Gina and I were talking about it this spring when I went and spent a month with her. And I really wanted to get away, not necessarily go completely vegan, because I don't think I could personally do that, especially because I'm not going to do dairy and I'm not going to do grains. But how can I find a way to not eat as many animal products? And I was reading about, it's more of a how to eat in terms of like timing. Because as a paleo individual, you are eating a crap ton of food. And that is not a figure of speech. You are eating a crap ton of food. And I thought, gosh, not only from a financial standpoint, because I see what's going in and I see what's coming out, and they look very much, as far as the volume goes, the same. So what am I retaining? I am just literally shitting out gobs and stacks of money. And not to get graphic, hey, this is episode number 31. This is the first time, for people that know me outside of this podcast, bathroom talk is like the number one thing. So I think to go 31 episodes and have my first shit reference is pretty goddamn good. But with that, it was a philosophy, and Gene and I really got into, we were looking at how much actual room does the food that you need grow. And it was talked about somebody that very much lives the American lifestyle. They need like 150 acres of land in order to be able to have everything that they consume. Vegans, on the other hand, it's something like an acre. You have your corner that's barley. You got the corn over here. No cows, so you don't have anything there, but they take up much less land. And I identified with that. I said, yeah, it'd be great if I could eat less meat. I don't know how the hell I'm going to do it, but I'm just eating so much, and I felt like my moods and my body was just so stuck on stupid, to use a friend of ours term. I was stuck on stupid. My body, when I didn't eat, I would go through these hunger rages. I wasn't adaptable, and so I actually kind of stumbled on it a little bit in this whole idea of, I think it's pronounced lepid, L-E-P-I-D, lepid release. And I started this new, now granted, it usually goes with a ketonic type of diet, where it's very high fat. They do a lot of dairy. So I didn't want to do that, but I love the idea of converting, essentially, my body from being carb dependent to more fat dependent. And as a result of that, because that's kind of the paleo idea, is leveraging your body to utilize your fat storages rather than your glucose storages. And so, stupidly, because I'm the type of person that when I get an idea in my mind, I'm just going to go it. And there's individuals that they see the line and they tow it. I just freaking jump right over. I go, I'm like you skydiving. I just jump out of the goddamn plane, right? So it is the last week of our vocation that we share. And it is not only from a physical sense very demanding, but mentally very demanding. And I decided to go cold turkey. You know what? I'm starting it this week. Not even thinking about anything. And so basically the way this lipid release lifestyle works is you are eating 3 times a day. That's it. You're not snacking because your body is snacking in between those times. It's snacking off of the resources that you have. Well, they talk about that when you make this sort of lifestyle change, you have to drink gobs of fluid because essentially what you're creating in your body is almost a flu-like symptom, and it is going to flush all of the crap that you have built up. And so I did this. So I basically, and granted, the meals that I eat are utilizing that same standpoint that Mike talked about a whole food-based diet. It's very complete nutritionally. I don't even take any supplements. Now, I haven't done, and I've wanted to take the test to see is there any holes as a result of my dietary habits? Is there anything that I have a hole in? But I just went for it. I'm going to save resources on not actually doing any supplements. I'm going to save resources because I'm not snacking. I'm not buying 40 pounds of flipping nuts and dried fruit to eat every day. And it felt mentally, it just made sense to me. And so it took about a month for my body to get used to it. But I will tell you at this point now, Mike, I've been doing this since about March. So we're going on about 7 months. And it's incredible because I try and go 5 to 6 hours between meals now. And then after my last meal, and I'm not always great about this because I'm a dessert guy. I love dessert. I really do. I try not to do sugar. It's tough. I mean, and there's a study out there, I will link to it on the website, about how sugar is the new cocaine. It is just as addictive as cocaine. Mike wrote a blog about it. I will link to his blog post. Screw whatever blog post I saw. We're linking to Mike's. And so it's been 9 months, something like that. Not quite 9 months. It's been 7 months that I've been on this. And it's been a life changer because there'll be times that I've got so many things going on within my day. And I know, okay, I'm going to eat lunch at 1 o'clock because 6 hours prior I did breakfast. And then when I have dinner, I try and go 12 hours at least, at a minimum, before I eat again. So then, as you described with your 25 pounds of excuses, gal, that your body's hungry. It's ready to eat. But the thing that I've noticed is that, let's say I miss it, right? I've got a meeting. I'm going to go do a workout, and I lose track of time because shit happens. Life happens. And I haven't eaten for 9 hours. Before, I would have killed somebody. I would have had anger, hungry rages. I would have ran to the store and bought a 12 packs of honey, which it's not really honey because it's planters, so it's just sugar, but honey roasted cashews, and I want to down those. And then, I don't know, magically 45 minutes later, finally my glucose levels would be up and I'd be okay. But as a really long-winded example to give you to hopefully help you leap off of this, I would love to hear from your standpoint, Mike, especially because you deal with this all the time, is that whole sense of adaptability. How adaptability is both, just like with being stubborn can be a great thing because you are committed, you are dedicated, you are getting into the gym day in, day out, and those are the type of people that you love as a client because it makes your job a little bit easier. You can focus on the fun things for your job. You don't have to focus on the bullshit of, hey, Mikey, I need you to get to the goddamn gym today, okay, so that we can help you lose your ass because you're trying to get in a bikini and nobody wants to see that ass the way it currently is in its physical state. So talk about from the standpoint of adaptability being a good thing, but then how it can also be a bad thing.
Yeah, just to bring this conversation back full circle, your squatty potty has been the topic of our conversations probably every road trip. So the shit talk is prolific in our car rides. I think there is at one point you and Jeff were pointing out all the places you stopped to take shits along the way on road trips. Adaptability, I'm not a nutritionist. I play one on TV. I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, whatever you want to say. Even in my guide as becoming a personal trainer and getting my certifications, they make very pointedly clear that it is outside of my scope of practice to consult on nutrition. That being said, nutrition is 90% of the battle when it comes to weight loss and healthy lifestyle change. And if you don't eat right prior to a workout, you've done it, I've done it, you either get dizzy, you throw up, you pass out. You have certain metabolic needs that your body has to sustain the workout that you're going to do that day, whether it be running a mile or deadlifting 500 pounds, right? You need to be able to feed yourself properly. So even though I'm not a nutritionist and it's outside of my scope of practice to consult on nutrition, I have to deal with nutrition on a daily basis. I have to. That's the number one thing that we have to talk about is how did you eat today? And I also want to make a little asterisk, if you will, to your conversation about you called it fat
lipid release, ketogenic lifestyle or diet.
Just to make a little asterisk on that, we call it fat adaptive, aka it's not Atkins diet. So South Beat, whatever you will, there's a number of different ways of saying the fat adaptive. Now, you've had great results from that. You also are one of the only people that I know that are dedicated to the success of your endeavors. Completely dedicated. Like you said, you jump into the water 2 feet first without checking the temperature. And not many people will do that. And we talk about adaptability, but we also talk about sustainability. Is this lifestyle, is this fat adaptive lifestyle sustainable for most people? One, because it's just not what they need to do. The other thing that you didn't mention is that you were dealing, if you don't mind me bringing this up, you were dealing with some health issues at the same time. And so you were actively searching for a way to manage those health issues. And rightfully so, you looked at nutrition as being the first causation. I think nutrition, again, is 90% of our battle when it comes to figuring out what's going on inside our bodies. My fiance has a thing called Hashimoto's. It's a thyroid issue. It's relatively common. A lot of people don't even know that they've got it. But basically, it just kind of throws her system off balance. She's decided to go gluten-free as a result of that. And there's a lot of other things that go on with that. But she found also that she can have gluten. It doesn't destroy the room like when you have gluten, Jesse. But she can have gluten. It just makes her really tired and sleepy. And she knows right away if she's had something that's contains some gluten in it. Now, sometimes she can get away with having a bite of a bagel or a croissant or whatever, and sometimes I'll make her eat something that's got gluten in it because it just tastes that good. I'm like, you got to try this, and she'll have a little nibble, and it doesn't have any ill effect on her. But for the most part, she's realized that her nutrition played a huge role in managing her Hashimoto's. So I'm not going to say that everybody needs something different, but there are people out there that need something different, like the fat adaptive lifestyle. I think for the most part, what we need is, I think CrossFit, Greg Glassman, the founder of CrossFit, lays out very simply: whole meats, vegetables, some nuts, berries, seeds, little starch and no sugar. If you stick to that, and they also say stick to the outside of the grocery store when you're shopping, don't go down the aisles, because then you're going to pick up processed foods that have tons of additives and sugars and things of that nature that just don't do anything good for our body. Our body fights it off. If you put it under a microscope, you can't even consider it food. It's just something that we put in our bodies because we like the way it tastes, or that we've been brought up eating that certain, again, an emotional connection to food. But if we stick to that, meats, whole vegetables, nuts, seeds, berries, little starch, no sugar, we'll adapt, and it's not as hard. But like you said, you eat a lot more because you're constantly, your body's already starving for the nutrition and trying to drop that cycle. One of the 25 pounds of excuses, I just can't afford to eat healthy. Well, you go to McDonald's and they prove that, right? You have the dollar menu selling you the burgers, and then you have a $7 salad on the same menu. And that's the kind of thought pattern that America's turned into, is that it's more expensive to eat healthy. But I encourage you to look for those ways, like you did, to find a way to get to that whole fresh foods. Take everything out of your cupboards, and when you click into my blog, you'll see why. The sugar compared to crack cocaine and what it does for your brain. And it's really not that you're hungry. It's just that your body is starving for that sugar that you told it that you'll feed it every 20 minutes. The more sugar that you eat, the more sugar your body wants. And it's a vicious, vicious cycle. So to adapt to a healthy way of eating is more mental than it is physical. Yeah, you're going to be hungry a lot, but it's not really a hunger pain. It's more of your brain signal saying, hey, I need some of that sugar that you promised me, that we've been living off for the last, for me, 42 years. And once people realize, or they back off, and that's the first thing that I tell them as a non-nutritionist that stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, the first thing that I tell people is you need to cut the sugar, the wheat, and the dairy right away. Get it out of your system. Like the girl in my biology lab, she said that she lost 5 pounds right away. First thing I asked her is like, you cut out the sugar, right? And she said, yeah. I said, now wheat and dairy is next. And here comes a list of things that she needs that wheat and dairy for. And excuses again. But the people that I find that cut that out, after 2 weeks, those cravings start to go away. They diminish to such a point they don't even realize they've got them anymore until they see something that just looks delicious. And they have that emotional tie to that food that looks delicious. And once they take that bite of that sugary sweet, then it's back on that cycle again. And another curve trying to break it. So does that answer your question, kind of where we're going with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've identified another topic to potentially jump off of for subsequent episodes together, because I'm certainly passionate, and you're staying at a Holiday Inn, I'm probably at the Motel 6 when it comes to nutrition, but I think it's something that we're both, as he swallows down some Coca-Cola. I'm trying to think of the last time I drank Coca-Cola, probably when I was, I think, at Chuck E. Cheese. Mom let it, because we didn't get to grow up doing soda, and I went graveyard. I went caffeine-free Coke, plus all the other different kinds of Coke, with some Sprite and lemonade, and I'm sure that did not have a good result thereafter.
You call that a suicide.
Yeah, that is a suicide. So, that's great. What I try and do, whether it's with Gene or by myself or hopefully with us, is try and have some real tangible, what's some things that we can do? We've identified a problem, 25 pounds worth of problems actually, but we've identified a problem. we've talked about some of the reasoning of that problem, the excuses that we make, adaptability. So if we're going to put together a 3 things we can do going back and forth, we can trade off. This is going to be organic. Not to get into like organic farming type practices, but organic in the nature of putting this together, because we're being adaptable right now. Right this freaking second. We are being adaptable. So if we're going to put together a top 3 list thing, Mike, you started off. What's 3 things to ensure, because not everybody's like me, not everybody's like you. More people are like your biology lab partner. So if I'm biology lab partner, what's 3 things I can do to step forward, quit using those excuses, get my ass off the couch, get in the gym, and move forward?
Adaptability. So Jesse jumps in the car and says, "Hey, I brought my microphone. We're doing a podcast." So totally off the cuff. What's 3 things that we can do to move forward? 1, consider your body as a big scientific experiment. It's a big biology lab in itself. Cut the emotional ties in that regard. The scientist cannot have an emotional tie if he wants to see the result of an experiment that he's producing. He can't have that bias. Once you put bias into a change of lifestyle, you're going to sabotage yourself. You're going to make little excuses along the way. Oh, I had a cheat meal this weekend. Well, God damn it, you had cheat meals every day for the last 42 years of your life. You can't afford to have a cheat meal right now. We're working on a process. So that would be the first thing.
All right, to play off of that, number 2, and hopefully you agree with this. If you don't, well, screw it. We're going off the cuff. But number 2, I think this plays into you and your profession, Mike, is you need to have that circle of trust. You need to have those group of individuals, even if it's one you know what? It could even be your stuffed animal you have at home. But somebody, everybody needs somebody to talk to. I don't care who you are. You look at some of the terrible, horrific things that are going on, not just in our country, but in the world right now, and finding out backgrounds of these people, and it was because, well, they were a loner. They didn't have that group. They didn't have somebody they could identify with. They were teased. They were bullied, on and on and on. And so much of the advice that we've given in these 3 steps or 3 things that you can do all relate back to having a group. And in the sense of not making excuses. If it's somebody like Mike that you need in order to work out, like I said, it's a multi-million-dollar industry. I've done the insanity workouts. I've done the P90X. Tony Horton drives the shit out of me. Sean T, with his big thighs, just moving them all around. Hey, it works for some people. I liked it not from the sense that I got to watch his glistening body in front of me, but more from the sense that I saw tangible results. Did I hear Sean T in the back of my mind saying, "Oh, you got to get it, Jesse. Get it"? No, I didn't. But then when I talked to my other friends, that held me accountable. So much of what we do is getting to that first point. Like Mike said, being the human guinea pig. I'm at the line, and I just have to step forward. So that's the first part of it. You got to step forward. You got to have the support group that goes, "All right, Jesse, we're shoving you out of the plane." And then once you're out of the plane, you got to make sure that you're falling with grace. And even if you stumble a little bit in the air, maybe you don't nail everything, you have some setbacks, but you got to have those people in your life that allow you and help you to reach those goals. Sometimes you might even need those people that tell you you can't do it. I know for me, just my nature, how stubborn I am, I feed off of individuals that say, "You can't do it." and I basically go, F you, I am going to do it. So you need to have a group of people. I think you need to have both. You need to have that group of people that you can confide in. You can have some pillow talk, some cry time. Maybe it's, like I said, that stuffed animal that you can just vent and say, gosh, you know, I'm trying to lose these 5 pounds or these 5 inches, however Mike's trying to tell me, and I'm struggling with it. But I got to do it. You believe in me, don't you, Teddy? Yeah, I believe in you. And then you go forward. And then you've also got those people that are like, yeah, whatever. Heard it before. You are not going to do it. So that's number 2. Mike, to wrap it up, number 3.
Well, just to tag on what you're saying, listen, support group is key, but how do you find that support group? You have to give people information. This is what I'm trying to do. With the advent of Facebook and social media, I've got a friend that posts her goals religiously, and people are quick to jump on her and say, hey, great job, keep it up. And that's why she does it through Facebook, because she knows that she has that support group outside. That's what makes CrossFit, by the way, so successful, is you go into a gym, you get that coaching that you feel is a personal coaching in a group of 15 people, but you have that support group of those 15 people that are going to help you reach the end of that workout. So I just wanted to tag that on it. Finding the support group, it just simply means sharing the information of your goals with the other people. They need to know how to do that. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. I think what's really elemental in finding and reaching that goal, and we talked about treating your body as a science experiment, cutting those emotional ties as being one point, finding that emotional group. But number 3, just put it down on paper. Set that goal. We've all seen the SMART goal sheet, and I can't tell you what each letter stands for in that anagram. You set the goal and put it down. Put it in writing. This is what I want to do. Be very specific. Jesse, if you wanted to send me a Christmas card, you wouldn't write on the Christmas card, Mike Efird, and drop it in the mailbox with a stamp. You'd have to put my name, my street address, the city that I lived in, and even the zip code so that postman can find my mailbox. If I write down the goal, I want to lose weight, that's not specific enough. Because again, the weight isn't going to be the determination of success in the gym. The determination of success is, do I like what I look like naked? That's it. Do I like what I see in the mirror? And I need to write down what that looks like. I need to write down, I got to know what my measurements are, right? So I need to lose 16 inches to fit into that dress. A big catchphrase now is LBJ, little black dress, or LBD or something like that. I need to fit into my little black dress. So you need to write down, I need to lose this many inches. That might mean losing this many pounds, or it might mean losing this many pounds and gaining this much muscle. I need to lift 4 times a week as per my trainer. I need to make sure I get in and do high-intense interval training at least 3 times a week. You need to write down your goals. I put them on my phone, and they give me reminders every day of what I need to do. And if you don't do that, because this isn't a habit already in your life, you're going to forget, or you're going to put it off for something that is, quote unquote, more important. You will prioritize your fitness goals down at the bottom of the woodshed. Like your makeup will be more important than your fitness goals. Your time with friends is going to be more important than your fitness goals. Your work, whatever. People come to see me during their lunch hour break. You know how dedicated that is to leave a stressful job as an engineer, run down to the gym, work with a personal trainer where he's going to kick your ass, leaving in a puddle of sweat, and go back and finish your day at work? That is dedication. I have a lot of respect. Or the people that start their day with me. 6 a.m, there's Tom killing himself right before he goes to work. It's dedication. But you need to have that goal written down, and you're going to have to discipline yourself to follow that goal, whatever it takes. Like, that is your priority. So, to recap, again, treat your body like a science experiment, find the support group, and then write the goals down. What exactly do you want to get done?
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for coming. Thanks for collaborating. And thank you for utilizing your expertise in hopefully allowing people to move beyond those excuses. You already gave the recap. For more information on all the topics that we talked about today, the links to Mike, in case you're interested, you're in the local area, you're interested in having him kick your ass on a daily basis about sugar and how addictive it is, all the different fad diets and techniques that we've talked about, please go to pausethinkconsider.com/25. I look forward to talking to you all again tomorrow on Pause, Think, Consider.